go. Hi, everyone. It's Jenny Heckman here with Jenny's Telltales. And today we have Scottish epic fantasy writer, John. Did it wrong already. Okay, Andrew John Rainnie. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's Jenny Heckman here from Jenny's Telltales. And today we have epic fantasy writer, Andrew Rainnie. And he writes the series Spirits of Vengeance. And today we are spotlighting Assassin of Araneque. Now you're going to make sure that I said that right?
Assassin of Araneque, that's correct.
Assassin of Araneque. Okay, and so welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
So you said that it's in the evening in Scotland right now, and you are in Glasgow.
I am in the sunny Govan area of Glasgow, which is actually, we usually say that with a sense of irony, but it is actually sunny today, so it's been really nice.
Hey, that's perfect. Okay, so I live in the Seattle area or Washington State, and so my outside looks probably close to what your outside looked like today. So it's always raining and gray. And
I think Seattle gets more rain than Scotland, I think, when I was...
Little bit, yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Or if it's not rain, well, they're kind of similar because when I was in Scotland, the same thing. It was more like a drizzle. You'd have like the little drizzle, and some people, you could always tell the tourists because they'd run for their umbrellas, and true Washingtonians do not use umbrellas.
We've just come out of February was just a full month of rain. It was biblical proportions of rain. So I'm kind of glad that it's over now.
Oh, perfect. All right. So I have a couple questions for you. My first one is, here's a tough one. We're going to start with the tough one. What is the most inspirational thing you have done in your life?
Oh, so I could answer this so many different ways. I'd say for me personally was taking a year out to go traveling. Because when you do that, when you extract yourself from your own life and go and do something that you've always wanted to do, it's a big risk because you're giving up your job, you're going away from your friends and family. So yeah, that would probably be my answer. So,
where did you go?
Everywhere. So I was traveling in 2011, and my first book was a non-fiction book based on my blog at the time. So I was keeping a blog when I was traveling. So I went to Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, South America. Was meant to go to Central America, but broke my leg. So I had to get a 34-hour flight home, which was enjoyable, loaded up with painkillers. But the reason I was doing it was because I was turning 30, and I'd always wanted to travel before I turned 30. And a few of my friends had arranged to meet me in New York for my 30th birthday. And obviously I'd come home early. So I had to work for 6 weeks just to get better and make sure that I could fly, and went back to New York on my crutches to celebrate my birthday.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was a good end to an epic trip.
And you ended your epic trip in New York. I mean, that's pretty crazy there.
Yeah, so I've done a little tour. So I've done New York, Boston, Chicago, then went up to Canada, and we done Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and then I flew back to New York.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Yeah, it's beautiful. You're from Chicago, Andrea, so it's
Chicago was one of our favorite stops because a few of my friends came with me for that leg, and it was Halloween in Chicago. Over Halloween was just so crazy, beautiful, and we went out to a few bars on Halloween night, and it was just epic. It really was, and people were so nice.
It is. I mean, in the city, it's a lot of fun. Now, when you go outside the city in the cornfields, it's just cornfield.
What do you love that most people don't like and would not probably understand about you?
Oh, editing. I love editing.
Yes.
I always see people. I'm quite thingy on Twitter. I go on Twitter quite a lot, and I always see people moaning about editing, and I'm like, but that's where the magic happens. That's where your fun happens, I always find.
So you like editing? Okay, so I don't understand that about you.
No, I think it comes from. So I've got a background in screenwriting, so I studied screenwriting, got a master's in screenwriting. And most of your work when you're screenwriting comes from your second draft, your third draft, your fourth draft. Whereas I think I think people kind of view books as a little bit different. They think most of the work goes into the first draft, and then it's all kind of polishing and editing. Whereas I just do the opposite. I do a rough first draft, and then I go in and like, no, this doesn't work. That doesn't work. I properly, take it apart and put it back together again.
So your first draft is kind of your creative outline, and then your next that meaty kind of area is in your second edit, or is it in each edit that goes on after that?
Probably the second and maybe the third edit is where I'd say the fun happens. It's more I'll plot it. I'm a plotter, not a pantser. So I'll plot it very well, and then I'll do the first draft, and if I have any ideas to change it, that I'll just write them and put them aside, and then in the second draft I'll go through all my ideas and go, yeah, that was brilliant, or no, that was horrible. Why did I even think of that? But it's where I usually find some of the connections come from. Like I remember the first book when I was writing it, I was like, oh, this doesn't really work, or this character doesn't fit in as well. So you're trying to find a family link or a plot link or something, and when you make those connections in your second draft and your third draft, you're like, oh, amazing, this book's finally clicking, it's brilliant. So yeah, I love editing.
That's awesome. It's really great and refreshing to meet somebody that does like that editing kind of process. And if you're getting your inspiration that way, that's actually really important that you understand it and you get it, because a lot of people don't. And then they write their first draft and they're like, oh, well, and then they don't finish it. They don't do anything more with it because they think it's too hard or whatever.
It's a slog to them, yeah. But no, to me, it's part of the overall process. It's not a separate thing,
Perfect. That's great. And you said you were a screenwriter before this, is that right? Or
before and during. So this book, the first book, actually started life as a screenplay. It was a funny story because I was studying screenwriting in Bournemouth, which is a city just south west in England, but I was working in London, so I was commuting back and forth. And for our last year project, we had to write a feature film, and I wanted to write an epic fantasy tale, and ended up writing double the amount of words that I was meant to, and had to repeat the year because I'd basically failed that unit for doing too much work. But my lecturer at the time, who was helping me with the script, basically said, this isn't a script, this is a book. Go away, figure out the world, because it was essentially paint by numbers. Boy gets a sword, has to go on an adventure, and it, you sometimes need people to say to you, this is rubbish, which is what she was saying, but in a really nice way. And it wasn't until years later that I picked it up again and found a better way to tell the story, which was to tell it through the character of Kamina, who at that point was such a minor character. She had like one or two lines and then disappeared. But you realize that she's got more to lose. So the revelation for me was when I was looking at the characters in the story and took a step back and said, who has the most to lose in this story? And if I realized if I found a way for Kamina, who was the younger sister, she didn't want to go on an adventure, so she was going to be forced to go in this quest, then she would have the most to lose. So yeah, and then it all started kind of clicking together.
Oh, I love that. That's great. And that's book one?
So that's book one, yeah.
Okay. What inspires you in your life and in your work?
Everything. Absolutely everything. I'm one of the kind of newer generation of writers where I play a lot of video games, so I get a lot of inspiration from video games. And if anyone's read the first two books, they'll see a lot of like tiny little nods to Legend of Zelda and Xenoblade Chronicles, things like that. Skyrim. But yeah, pretty much everything. Like I do a lot of creative things. This isn't just my only outlet. So like I'm a filmmaker, screenwriter. I run a website about Glasgow as well, so I do a lot of photography and that. So just everything in general. I kind of like, I see beauty everywhere and want to write about it, and I also see problems everywhere, and you want to write about it to tackle those problems.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And Glasgow and Scotland in and of itself is kind of an inspirational country. It's there's so much history and stories and lore and everything, music, and it's just so much creativity in that area that I imagine that you just have to walk out your door sometimes to be inspired. I mean, when
maybe
I was
not just
there,
outside my door, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that, you go to areas of Scotland and England, and, they call it Newtown, and Newtown is older than America. So, I mean, it's interesting. It was fascinating to me to look at those buildings and go, oh my God, the people that have walked through these doors. So
yeah, it's
very inspiring.
It's funny because like because I've traveled around the world, I've seen things. I've seen things, but I've seen a good portion of the world now, and you realize certain areas of the world are very new, very fresh. They don't have the history. For example, down the road there's a church in Govan that has these old stones that they unearthed in their churchyard, and they think they're dated like thousands of years ago from the days of the old Scottish kings. And you're like, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do.
It really is.
When I'm not in Scotland, you kind of after a while you miss it, because it's, even though it's such a small country, it is just, you go, like you say, maybe not at my doorstep, but if I go half an hour north, I'm at Loch Lomond. An hour north, I'm at the mountain ranges. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous. Have you written any other books that are not published yet?
So I haven't written the third Spirits of Vengeance yet, but it's there. The idea is there. I know what I'm doing. I just need to actually sit down and do it. But the first book that I published was called My Right Leg is Tastier Than My Left, which was
that fascinated me. Now tell me about that book, because I was just like, what?
So when I was traveling around the world, I was keeping a travel blog, and when I came home, I was basically unemployed for 6 months. I had nothing to do, and I was looking at these. I think it was roughly 400 pages, and I was like, I should do something with this. And about this time, self-publishing was just becoming a popular thing to do. Like Amazon had just launched their KDP, or Create Space back then. And I was like, why don't I publish this and see what happens? So I published it for £1. It wasn't a lot, and people bought it, and I was like, oh, people are buying this. It was brilliant. So that was 10 years ago that I started the journey. So I started it in January 2011, so it's now 2021. So I was looking at the book going, I should redo this because it's full of errors and grammatical errors, spelling errors, everything. So I should go back and do something with this, because I took it off sale, partly because the cover was basically me in a bra from a pub in New Zealand, and we had to dress up. And I was like, yeah, maybe take that down. That's not going to help me get a job. But I'd like to go back and revisit it. And because we've been in lockdown for over a year now because of the coronavirus, my wife and I were like thinking of starting a podcast, and we were going to do 2 podcasts, one in Glasgow, and then I said, why don't we do one in traveling, and we can talk about the adventures that we've been on, so, but in a roundabout way, it's going to come back to that book because it's, it's a good title. Hopefully if I get that re-edited, it will be on sale later this year.
Well, I can tell you that my very first book, it was very similar. I did the same exact thing where I
gave me the book and I was with the fast book.
Yeah, because I had written it, and it was just to see if I could do it and that kind of thing. And then, but it always kind of bothered me because of the grammar and the punctuation. I didn't have all the resources that I have now. And so, it just whatever. And I sat on it and sat on it and sat on it. So if I could give you any advice, I would say, don't sit on it, just do it, because I just did that too. And I put a different title on it. And but I did close some arcs that needed to be closed. And yours is nonfiction, right? That one, one you did, that was traveling. Yeah. So, I closed some arcs that needed some finishing touches and stuff. And I'm so happy that I did it. So go out and do it, because I think you'll be happy.
I'm definitely good at it. It was more coming up with the approach, because it's nonfiction. It's kind of different than anything else I do. And I was like, do I do it where, you see books that are written by 2 different people and they have 2 different kind of narrative strands. I was like, so do I revisit it and put my own thoughts from 10 years in the future, or do I just go and redo it? So I've been playing with a couple of different kind of tools, and I'm not sure which way to go, to be honest. So as soon as I make a decision, I'll be you know,
Perfect.
all fired
That's
up for it.
great. That's great. Let's see. So if you could spend time with one of your characters from your book, what would it be? Who would it be? And what would you do during that day?
So there's a character called Innes Vangar, who is a former soldier turned marauder, turned soldier again. And his story, because it's still to finish, so I'm not going to give it away, but his story is rather tragic, but funny. And he likes a good beer. So it would probably be him. And
just a redram.
Just a redram, no.
Just a redram.
Because, well, fun enough, in the second book, as an aside to that story, there's a brewery in Scotland called Brewdog. And they're in America now. They've got a brewery in Ohio and a hotel there as well.
Oh.
And I'm a shareholder because you could invest in them. And there's a few subtle nods to Brewdog in the second book. So
lovely! I love that.
I would take him to Brewdog and have a few beers.
Perfect. Okay, so one thing that I do like to do at the end of these is to have my last question be, what would you like to most say to your readers? And this is your time to kind of say whatever it is that you'd like to say to the readers that you have, future readers that you might have, any promotions that you have going on, anything like that. So tell us what would you like to most say to the readers out there and listeners?
To the ones that have already read it and bought the books, thank you so much, especially the feedback. Like, some people contact me and they have questions. Some of them are angry with what I've done with the characters, but it's nice to see them getting invested emotionally in a character. Like, I hate reading books and just feeling cold because the characters are there as a plot point or a device, and I try and flesh out my characters as much as possible. To me, they are real people, you know, in a odd sense. To people that haven't read it, why not? It would be my only question. It's epic.
Give it a try.
No, seriously. Yeah, I think with the second book especially, because the first book I worked on and off for like 8 to 10 years, whereas the second book was half of that. And I was very nervous about releasing it and seeing how people reacted. And then when it started getting the kind of same 4 and 5 star reviews that the first one did, I was like, oh, thank God. So yeah, it's been well reviewed. Please go read it if you like fantasy. Oh,
lovely. And anything coming up?
Not promotion wise. No, I'm so busy. I've kind of taken. I had a launch window of December to March, which we're now hitting the end of. But my time is now being spent prepping a short film that's been delayed. So we were meant to shoot this last year, and then as soon as the coronavirus hit, we were kind of like, we cannot do this. So we've just been kind of holding off, waiting until lockdown gets released, and we're hoping it's getting released in May over here. So we should be shooting that in May and June. So I'm just trying to prep it beforehand.
Anything you want to share on that? Is there? Can you share anything on that?
Yes, it's not a secret or anything. So a couple of years ago, we crowdfunded a film called The Water Rats, which we filmed with 2 young actors in Glasgow, and we actually raised enough money to do a smaller second one. And I put a call out for scripts. The idea was that the scripts had to be, The Water Rats was it's an analogy for like animal cruelty, and so we had to find a script that was of a similar message, but maybe in a more positive slant, because Water Rats is a very downbeat film. So we found a lovely script by a writer called Callum Brown, called Saviour of Our Streets. And it's about a homeless man who encounters a homeless dog, and they kind of, don't want to say hook up because that sounds like they're in a romantic relationship, but they enter into this lovely friendship. And it's been 2 years, I think, since we found the script, and we were going to, like I said, we're going to shoot it last year. Kind of glad we didn't now, because I've been able to find a better location than the first location we were going to use, which is nice. So it uses more of Glasgow scenery, which was a big part of both Callum and I's wish, was to show Glasgow and to show a lot of the artwork and scenery. So yeah, I'm glad. In a roundabout way, I'm kind of glad we got a delay.
Yeah, that's really nice. And you guys are all staying safe and healthy out there. And are you about ready to have your country open up a little bit more?
Yeah, so they've been doing the vaccinations in stages, like by age group. So my parents have had theirs; they're in their 60s. Me and my wife still haven't even been told when we're getting ours, but I imagine it'll be April or May. But we've been told from April things are going to start easing. By May, pubs and restaurants will start opening. So hopefully by summer we'll be back to some sort of normal. Which would be nice.
So even your pubs and restaurants aren't even open yet then?
Nothing's open. So essentially it's essential shops, so anything that sells like food, that sort of, and some restaurants are open but only takeaway, so you have to get it delivered, or you can go collect it. There's certain shops that are open where you go park your car and they'll bring whatever you've ordered out to you. But yeah, other than that, we're still very much locked down.
Shut in, yeah. Oh, well, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us today, because this has been an absolute pleasure. It's kind of actually catapulted me back into Scotland, a place that I absolutely love, and I can hardly wait to go back. So I'd like to thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on and joining us. And I wanted to let everyone know out there that Andrew will be on the website today doing his author interview. And if you would like to learn more about him, you can either go on Jenny's Tattletales and find all of his links there, or you can go on to www.andrewjohnrainnie.com. So thank you so much. Have a very blessed day, and I'm so happy you're here.
And when you come to Scotland, let me know, and we'll take you out. We'll show you the town.
Absolutely. I'd love it. We'll go right back. It would be great. Thank you so much, Andrew. Have a great and lovely day.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.